Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Harebrained Games. Today we're going to do a special video called Fields of Fire, 15 Years and 5 Tips. You know, we've been together, at least 15 years now, Fields of Fire and I can't tell you that the relationship has been solid but rocky. There have been times when we've had communications issues, there's times when we just haven't gotten along, there's times when I feel like we're just on two different planets trying to learn about each other. Times I put it in the timeout corner because I got mad at it and set it aside for a couple years, and then every few months I'd come back. We've tried all kinds of things. We've read books on self-help. We tried couples counseling, but it's a solitaire game, so that didn't work out. But over the crucible of time, I finally realized that there are two very easy ways to learn this game. One is to be really smart and be really good at all things military. That's not me. The other is to set your watch for November of 2039 and follow my 15-year-old until, like me, it finally clicks. I'm going to hopefully help you find a third way that we'll talk about. And in general, after the last year or so, just rededicating myself to understanding this game for a couple reasons, one of which is the deluxe edition, but even before then, to reacquaint myself, is that I finally believe that I have broken through to the most basic of understandings of this particular game. And I wanted to share for folks, and this is particularly for folks who have been eyeing this, who have been just kind of curious about it, or who see it and be like, this is, what is all the scuttlebutt? What is the buzz? To help them piece together what about this game is that really elevates it, sets it apart, and what things to really know about that have helped me finally unlock and discover the magic of Fields of Fire, to be honest with you. Now, this is not for people who already know everything there is to know. If you've already known this game, none of this will be as valuable. This is meant to be for people curious and who want to come into it and maybe get a little bit of a head start. These are my learning lessons. I don't claim to be authoritative. I just apparently can suck for a really long time till I finally suck less. That's basically it. And the thing about Fields of Fire, as you look at it, you'll see pictures online, you'll see all kinds of things. And the one thing you're going to look at is think about is that Fields of Fire is a reverse mosaic. When you're staring at really up close at a mosaic picture, you don't get it. Nothing. It's just indistinguishable. It's only when you zoom out that you finally see the full picture, and then that mosaic is like, I get it. And that's what we're dealing with here, except in reverse. You may look out and you may see some crazy, just pictures of cards and chits and pieces and all that. Nothing like your usual chits and pieces on a big war map and like, oh, well, that's, North Africa. Oh, that's, the world. This is not that. And this reverses it, is that you see this picture and you're overwhelmed, but once you zoom in on each and every little section of it, then you start to see just the elegance, the orchestra of tactical combat that's taking place. And that's what it's about. So without further ado, let's get to the first thing that I've learned. And again, these are just tidbits of information for those who are curious and want to know a little bit about the overall structure. First off, what is the first thing I learned is that the chain of command is a first-class obligation. It's not a prelude to the journey. It is, in fact, an integral part of the journey. And what do I mean by that? In several games, say Memoir 44 being the simplest, or others, here's your orders. You can have up to 7 orders. You can have this many orders. You pull from chit. You do, you have a card that tells you can have, left, middle, or right. And then it's like, okay, this is the prelude to starting off in the fun part. Here, you have to really consider the chain of command as a first-class obligation. In the first missions, you're going to have a battalion headquarters, for example. It's off the map almost always. It's going to activate your company HQ, and that is the brainchild, the epicenter of where you start. This HQ chit then has close subordinates. It has things that answer to them. Like in many cases, you'll get 3 platoons, and those platoon headquarters chits will answer to the company, and you'll get this tree growing, and those platoons all have their own squad members or attached units, or you've got a couple extra things like an XO and a first sergeant and such. But generally speaking, you have to really structure how you command and the chain by which those commands are given for optimal efficiency. Here's an example because there's two things that a headquarters can do. It can activate, or it can just flat out give orders. The least optimal thing to do is have your company HQ at the start of every turn flip a card, because there's these general purpose cards um, that say you have 5 commands to spend. Cool. What can I do? Well, you can give orders or activate. Giving orders just means you, first sergeant, go to this card. You, squad, platoon HQ, you move over here. You, mortar fighting individual, like you, well, shoot some mortars. Um, and that's what's going on. That's the simplest, basest, least optimal way to do it. But headquarters have opportunities not just to give commands, but they can also activate headquarters beneath them. Or we'll get into that. But and that's how you build an exploding tree. Think of it this way: the company HQ gets 5 boxes of Girl Scout cookies. Now he can go deliver 5 boxes of those cookies to anybody he wants, and they'll all be happy. There's 20 units under his command, but he gives 5 of them Girl Scout cookies. Yay. But there's a magical part of it where this company headquarters unit, when it has 5 commands, can go, well, I'm going to activate this platoon HQ, that Q, and that Q, and the first sergeant. And those 4 not only get boxes, but they get cartons of boxes. And so now they don't have a box of cookies, they have 4 boxes of cookies. And they go and say, well, then I'm activated. I get to go give orders to my units. I get to give 4 units, like 4 boxes of Girl Scout cookies, Thin Mints, to my units. And each platoon is giving orders and orders. And it balloons out this ordering tree that goes on. And that's not just it. When you're done with the activation phase, which is the usual top level icing on the cake, or the core of the cake, then you have a second stage, which is like, well, what if I don't have enough Girl Scout cookies? What if I can activate first and second platoon, but third platoon is just sitting there? Is he just like, we're screwed, we don't get cookies, and we're just going to sit here and twiddle our thumbs? No. There's a secondary phase called an initiative phase, and that's where if you don't have enough actual orders to give in an activation phase, then anything that any HQ that doesn't, or qualifying candidate unit that doesn't have an opportunity to be ordered, is going to get their own initiative. And so they grab a card and they get orders too. Now, why does this matter? What's the difference? The difference is that when you draw to get activations or orders, if you're activated in that first phase, you get the maximum. If it's initiative phase, where you're kind of having to figure stuff out on your own without a lot of support from above, you get the lesser of the commands, which means like you might get 2 commands, maybe 1. Like that's not optimal, but you still get to do something, and that could be it still could be valuable for ordering things around. So you have this sort of like optimal way, best guess way, and then everyone's getting their orders. But wait, it's sort of like everyone else gets Thin Mints, but you're just going to go grab a box of Samoas on your own, and that's the way it worked. But wait, there's more. When all that's done, you also get the sprinkling commands from the sky, the Lord giving you general initiative, and that's when you just draw a card, and whatever commands are there, you can give to anybody you want. That's interesting because that's more like, okay, someone's pluckily doing this, or someone's doing, someone needs a command. You don't have to worry about communication, which is another issue. You don't have to worry about other things like, where the units are when you're ordering them and such. You can just give commands from the sky. And so you have these 3 layers of commands, ordering of commands are going on. And it's also a 4th issue, which you can save commands. If you have 3 and you're like, you know what, we aren't really in a lot of conflicts yet. I only have 2 commands left. I don't see any really acute needs. I'm going to save these commands. You can save a certain amount of them for a rainy day, or a raining down like artillery like day, so to speak. And so one of the things you're going to come up with as you're doing this chain of command is why bother with this? What is this all doing? Why bother if everyone's going to get something anyway? Isn't this distracting? Why not just allocate orders some other way that's a little faster so I can get to the meaty parts? Well, if perfect conditions existed and you got the maximum amount of stuff all the time, sure. But those standard day conditions never happen. Ever. And that's where you finally start seeing this come to fruition, where, hey, say your company HQ gets hit and they become a fire team. They're not capable of leading right now. They're just trying to survive. And they, if they get hit, now you have a break in the communication, the chain of command, and now you have some issues. Events upstream could do that too, or you could have certain situations where you don't have units nearby where they can talk to each other. A unit spreads beyond range and can't receive orders. Or you get a small allotment, and you're like, oh, this is not the time to get two commands. And then you're like, oh, I hope, did you save commands to make sure for the next turn? There's times when a unit will get extended far and away and, winds up in a nasty situation with units raining down fire, whatever. And then you really want that general initiative to go, or you see a vulnerability. Like, I have two general commands and I really want this unit in cover because otherwise I don't have a good feeling. And that's why this whole chain of command really proffers, it kickstarts this dynamic environment that makes this part of the game such a first-class obligation. Now, things I learned number 2. Communication is also central, and that is something that, in any relationship, communication is key, right? Here, sometimes I've seen it modeled out, so usually it's more like supply lines than it is communication per se. But here, you have a really strict responsibility to understand and note communication and how that's going to break down or how to place things. It's not just move your units out, in this fashion like Risk or anything else. Like, you've got to think of when you send a unit out to a different place and you're out of communication with it, what are you going to do? You're going to have to trust in its ability to do its own initiation, take cover, whatever, or you're going to have to move in, or you're going to have to do something. You're going to take risks. You're going to leave yourself in vulnerable positions and then try to mitigate that what you can. Moving units around in other places is freeform, but here the communication ramps up and it is impacting. See, I had, when I went into it for years, an anachronistic view of comms. It's just like, hey, Bubba, you take your guys and go kick that hill, and they'll be like, you got it, boss. That's not how it worked back then, and that's something that really sort of sobered me up. You have phone lines if you need them. You can run wire. Of course, if the wire gets cut by something along the way, well, there goes your communications. You've got radios. And that's kind of good. It gets better as you go into engagements, chronologically nearer to us than then. At the very least, you can gesture and yell on the same card and be like, but that won't last long because eventually you're going to want to take cover, or you're going to get pinned by enemy fire, or someone's going to go over a hill. And certain original radios only work if you've got line of sight, and stuff. Phones are easy again, but they're not. I don't. Yeah, you can lay lines and keep going, but again, off artillery map or units get destroyed, and their radios, again, being limited to line of sight or pinned, they can have them, they can break, and different frequencies that you've got to think about. So you've got your company radio, but you've got your battalion radio, you've got your artillery and off-map radios, and all of those have to work within the confines of people having these radios. And in fact, that's why in the earliest scenarios, and especially the training ones, they don't actually get you into the communication yet, because it doesn't help you learn the guts of the actual conflict portions of the game, which I think communication is a huge part of what makes this game unique and stand out. So I wouldn't spend too much time playing it for too long without diving in and really understanding communication, particularly in the earlier scenarios. And then the other thing is, like, what it makes colored flares, or, like some of the things valuable that you wouldn't think so. Like, why do I have to assign commands to red flares and yellow flares? Well, because you might want to bulk move when you're handling all these, like, I got this many, commands to give, but then you get everyone to a certain point, you're like, okay, flare goes up. You can do a mass command that you would not otherwise get to do. You can eke out orders, but then you get these sort of global commands for large scale actions, and that's pretty awesome. So that's the second thing that I would think about. The third thing is that, and this is probably not going to bother anyone but me, but I'm going to mention it anyway, is that I seriously overthought the line of sight rules on this. Now, remove elevation. I don't know why I struggle with this, but because the cards, each of the cards has like green edge around them. There's 4 corners and 4 sides, and the green means blocked. And the white, if they're white like this, then you can see through them. Well, I don't know why I was struggling with this, but it's very, very simple, because the line of sight rules are this. Again, terrain elevation not being considered, that's another aspect. But when you have a unit on a card, it can see every card around it. It doesn't matter what the lines are. That was like, okay, I don't know why I struggled with that. And then the reality is the actual target, like if you're looking from one card up to another card, it doesn't matter what the terrain, like the edges of the card you're on, and it doesn't matter what the edges on the card the target's on. All that matters are the cards in the middle. And if you can see, if you can trace nothing but white lines through it, you can see it. If not, it's blocked. Very simple. I don't know why I struggle with that, but maybe no one else will. But anyway, it's simpler than I made it out to be. And then once you get into elevation, you get into more nuanced rules. Like if I'm which makes sense. Like if I'm up higher on a hill, well, I can see one level down and stuff. So at this point, we're at tip 3, but you're probably asking, when do I get my gun? Like when do I get to start shooting stuff? So far, we've talked about everything, but we're not even really in combat yet. Stand down, sister. We'll get there. Because first we have 4, and that is the battlefield is dynamic. And I'm not saying that to be a tagline, and I'm not saying that to be trite. This is the most dynamic situation you're going to find yourself in. Expect the unexpected in all the ways. And I'm not talking certain layers. I'm talking even one of the several layers of dynamism is going to make every mission a different experience. You could take the exact same map and the exact same starting units, and you will get a different experience every time. And not just nominal, not just, you have a chair here when it was a sofa, on the last randomly generated map, whatever. No, you have stark differences even when the baselines are set, because you never know what package you're going to get as far as units. They can come in any direction, in any volume. They could come early, they could come into battle later, they could come into battle really already being spotted, or they could come into battle hidden. You've got that whole dynamic aspect. There's no dice, and because of that, you would think the removal of dice makes it better, because instead you've got Swiss Army cards, and Swiss Army cards have about 17,000 pieces of information on each card, and a way to shuffle through and make sure stuff's going on. But you will see things happen and not happen without ever having to look up 10 tables. If you've got 10 features, and you don't need 10 tables, those cards handle it all. But they do things like, if you want to take, maybe you don't always get to take cover, maybe you just have a bad run of luck. Maybe like in one scenario, you go up almost halfway through the battlefield, and because of the way things are working, you don't see an enemy at all, and you think it's great. But then it changes on a dime. The terrain, even if it's, no, I'm saying just in the basics. The other thing that's brilliant is the potential contact. And this works a little bit differently. Usually on games, you'll run in and you'll be like, hey, I've got, I'm going to move my units on here, and I'm going to reveal a token or something, and it's going to tell me what in that location there is. And so you kind of get this blind attacking kind of thing or stuff. That's not how it works here, because it's not necessarily guaranteed, nor is it even at times common that the potential combat you see is on that card. All you're doing when you move your units into that card is saying, okay, something could happen around me. And oftentimes you will find your way onto a card, try and get in cover, and then you'll find out, A, nothing's there. Or you'll find out there's a machine gun nest somewhere ahead of you, and now it opens fire on you right away. Or there's an artillery strike that's about to happen. Or there's an artillery strike that's going to happen before you even get a chance to react. And where is that happening? Well, randomly speaking, it could be up ahead, it could be to the left, to the right, to the middle, to the side. It could be close range, or you could try to put it at maximum range. It could be spotted or not spotted, which means you might have a harder road or an easier road. You get, for example, snipers, which represent kind of lots of different things offsite, not just it can change the game in a lot of ways too. And all of this is happening on the same map. Now you take that basic fact that everything's different every time, and then you say, well, now you have different terrain, and you have different lineups, and you have different groups, and you could take the same setup and go a different direction. You could try to be more aggressive, less aggressive, and you've got all of that for one map. And then you have a campaign of those maps in their entirety. And then you have another campaign. and then you have another campaign, and then you have a fourth campaign, all of which provide vastly different scenarios, situations, terrain cards, and units with which to contend with, let alone a lot of other inputs and stuff. And so when I say that the battlefield is dynamic, I'm not kidding. That's something to be considering when you are playing this game. And the fifth and last tip I have is, and again, where's my gun? Where's my gun? And here's the reality. This is not Call of Duty. This is Company of Heroes. And I'm not, and I don't mean Company of Heroes Second Edition board game, because I actually have that unpacked somewhere and I'm excited to get that one out. But this is not a game where you have an ability to just run around and shoot people like Company of Heroes, where you can just roll dice and remove units and go, yeah. That's not how it is. This is Company of Heroes, the video game, in a lot of ways, plus more. You don't point and shoot. Well, sort of. In general, you have you lasso your units and you send them and you organize them, but when it comes to opening fire or making decisions, they're going to make the firing decisions on their own. They're going to go like, if I'm getting shot from here, I'm shooting here. That's going to happen. And that's the thing to kind of to keep in mind. Things naturally configure themselves in a dynamic way. For example, you have a unit that goes in, it immediately gets discovered or discovers another unit, an enemy unit, and it's going to open fire. It's going to have a primary direction of fire, which makes sense, and it's going to have a volume of fire, and that's how it's going to go. Now, you actually have to say stop firing if you want to not have them fire or switch, change targets or whatever. And that's what you have to do. There are certain things you can command, like grenade attacks. You're going to illicitly invoke those. Just like sometimes you're like, okay, I'm going to take this unit over. I'm going to have it use its special ability. But in general, you're not going to have that direct situation. You're going to set things up and then let your units, your subordinates, do what they're supposed to do best. Things naturally configure themselves in a dynamic way. And you can have situations like crossfire. You can concentrated fire. You worry about cover, getting under cover, because they're going to fire back. And depending on the volume of fire, is it small arms? Is it automatic? Is it heavy? Everything you're doing in this game, right up to the point of resolution of a particular turn of conflict, is done to position and advance and optimize everything you can do, all for one frame of resolution. Other games will say move and attack this unit, or attack and then move, or move and then when everyone's moved, do an attack, or hey, I'm going to do a reaction fire and stuff. And you're going to have these phasings of like, if I move here, you move here, last 100 yards or such. That's not how this works, and it's absolutely glorious. Everything you're doing in the game, all the way up to the final combat effects resolution, is just setting the stage, getting things in the best position you can, and then boom, you render it. In video game development, we have what's called like a gameplay thread, and we have a rendering thread, for example. When it's time to simulate the game, you're running your gameplay loop, your physics loop, your game logic loop, and doing all these things to figure out what the game logic is doing. And when you're done, after that, the rendering thread on a different thread is going to take all that and build you a picture. 60 times a second, it's going to build you a screenshot. That's kind of what's happening here. Once you get to that screenshot, there are no more inputs. You don't have to go, well, if you fire, then it's freeing. It's freeing to not go, okay, we're in the middle of this, I'm moving on, because there's already so much to track beforehand. You get this, you sit back and you're like, okay, you did all the work, you practiced your 50 hours a day, now it's time for the concert. And then everything culminates into a resolution that's really cool. I mean, everything, every situation, every attack, and all that all culminates into one thing, and that's a net combat modifier. And all, everything. Are you in cover? Are you, what kind of arms fire are you taking? Oh my gosh, there's so many inputs and whatever, but it actually gets easy because you're just running them through at that point. Every unit that could take fire, run through it. And you go, okay, you have a +3, -4, whatever, and then you flip a card and something happens to the unit. And that's it. And you could do everything and still wind up getting that one card that's a complete miss all the way down. It has happened. It has happened. That's the chaos of war. But in general, it's a nice, tight, general, did my best, let's see what happens kind of situation. And the other thing that's great is that this is not a binary damage situation. Whether you roll a dice or flip a card, it doesn't say, 2 units go away. Okay, I'll go 2 units, I've got 2 health left. That's not how it works. The reduction here, when you take a hit, when something happens, um, you can be pinned, you can be hit, you can actually have stuff miss, which is great. When that happens, you then draw another card to decide how that resolves. What's the scope and magnitude of that hit? It's not just health points, it's a scattering of other things can happen. Your good ordered unit, your platoon could wind up having just flat out having a casualty, and then one of its steps goes down and it's got a casualty, and well, all you can do there is try and pull them back and save their life. You could have a litter team that's like a little bit more conscious of what's going on, not quite as paralyzed, but paralyzed is the term, but all they can do is help casualties. Then you could have a fire team that's like, well, we're hunkered down here. All it did was sort of separate us, disband us, make us a little disorganized, but we still have some fighting power, some ability. Or you could have somebody go, okay, that's it, we're pissed. We're an assault team now. So you still got your squad, your assault team, and they're small capacity, but they can still move around and do something. And so you get this sort of scattering of anything could happen, different magnitudes of things could happen based on just a single hit. And so all of that is happening in creating this battlefield situation that's just truly engrossing. And then in the end, you clean up the mess and, wrap it. Like, I remember we'd go to Montana, and every 4th of July, that night, we would go out to the streets, and the whole city would be just war zone. We would have fireworks, whatever. And then, we would have all stuff going. And then about 4 o'clock in the morning on July 5th, a bunch of bulldozers would come and they'd pile up all the fireworks and they'd sweep it up. And by the 7 o'clock in the morning, you didn't even know a war happened. That's basically what all this does. It does all this tourist stuff, resolves everything, sets everything up so everybody's in the right situation. Boom, on to the next turn and the next part of the agenda. And that's effectively what the culmination of this is. The only thing I will say to you, one other tip, is it's not the guns in your fight, it's the fight in your guns. Let me explain. Small arms fire. I'm a small arms fire unit. I want to reach up and grab Girl Scout cookies. Well, I can't because my arms are too small. So I grab my twin brother Larry, and we both have small arms. And so we're staring there trying to grab the Girl Scout cookies, and it doesn't work. So I grab my other twin brother, Daryl, and we all three of us are just trying to grab, and we can't. So we have to grab my other twin brother, Daryl, and he has big arms. He's automatic arms. He can reach up and grab those cookies. Think of it that way. Just because you have three of your squads with small arms firing something, the efficacy is identical. So that's something to consider. That's a little bit different than you'd expect. You'd expect more people firing equals more fire. No. More powerful fire equals more fire. And that's effectively the tips that I have for you. And to quote one of my favorite sort of techos, what a time to be alive. Back then we had fields of fire, the basics and whatever, and now we have, thanks to the Herculean efforts of the stalwart crew who has spent years mastering and knowing this and rebuilding with, again, an updated rulebook twice as large as the one before it and filled with glorious things. Rulebooks, campaign, scenario settings, just the amazing amount of teaching and playthroughs that are done. We have just a wealth of information. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. I went back and read the original rulebook after reading the new ones, and honestly, there was a refinement, but I actually understand the original rulebook just fine. It had the basics in there, just not organized in a way that my mind could fathom as well as it could. So I actually was pretty impressed by that. But we have an opportunity now to really enjoy this sort of once in a lifetime kind of game. I don't expect to ever have it off of a table. It is my lifestyle game. But that's getting into my review of the game, which I will be doing at some point in the future. But in the meantime, this is this is what I'd like to give to those who are interested in Fields of Fire, who might want to give it a shot and want to know a little bit more about what makes it unique, what makes it stand out pretty much alone in to its peers. So thanks again. and we'll see you next time on Harebrained Games.